Dad brought his mistress to Sunday dinner and announced that she is the new woman of the house. Mom served divorce papers with dessert. We had Sunday dinner at my parents' house every week. It was tradition for 20 years. Mom would cook all day Saturday, preparing Dad's favorite pot roast, homemade rolls, 3 different sides, and apple pie from scratch. My siblings and I would arrive at 4, eat at 5, and stay until 8, talking about our weeks. Dad would sit at the head of the table like a king surveying his kingdom. That Sunday started normally. I arrived with my husband and kids. My brother Kyle was already there with his family. My sister Amy came alone as usual. Mom was in the kitchen finishing the gravy. Dad was in his chair reading his phone. Then the doorbell rang. Dad jumped up and said he'd invited someone special. He opened the door, and there stood Natalie, his 28-year-old secretary. She was wearing a tight red dress and holding a store-bought salad. Dad brought her into the dining room and announced that this was Natalie, the new woman of the house, and we should all call her Mom. My actual mother was standing right there holding a boat of gravy. Dad said Mom already knew about the situation and had agreed to be civilized. He said modern families had different arrangements, and we all needed to be mature about it. Natalie sat down in Mom's chair and asked when dinner would be ready. She actually looked at my mother and asked when she'd be serving the meal. Mom set down the gravy very carefully and said dinner would be ready in a moment. Dad told us kids that Natalie would be joining all family events from now on, and we needed to respect her as our new mother figure. Kyle asked if they were getting divorced. Dad said that wasn't necessary. They could all be adults about this arrangement. Amy asked what arrangement exactly. Dad said he loved both women and they'd agreed to share. Mom hadn't said a single word of agreement. Natalie started talking about how she wanted to redecorate the house because it looked dated. She pointed at Mom's china cabinet and said it needed to go. She said the whole place screamed middle-aged depression. Then she looked at us and said she couldn't wait to be our fun young mom who understood our generation better. She was 2 years younger than me. My kids asked why Grandpa's friend was calling herself Grandma. Natalie said children adapt quickly, and they'd learn to love her more than their real grandma, because she'd buy them better presents. She actually said that in front of my mother. Mom went back to the kitchen and returned with the pot roast. She served everyone, including Natalie. Smiled and said see how well this was working already. He praised Mom for being so understanding and evolved. He said most women would make a scene, but Mom knew her place in the new family dynamic. That's when Mom went back to the kitchen again. She returned with dessert, which was weird because we hadn't eaten dinner yet. She placed a piece of apple pie in front of each person. On top of Dad's pie was an envelope. He asked what it was. Mom said it was just some paperwork he needed to sign. Dad opened it thinking it was probably bills or something. It was divorce papers. Mom had already signed them. She'd been planning this for weeks. Turns out she knew about Natalie for 6 months. She'd hired a private investigator, documented everything, and met with a lawyer. Dad had bought Natalie jewelry with joint funds. He'd taken her on trips he'd claimed were business. He'd promoted her twice for no reason except their relationship. Mom had copies of everything. The best part was the house. Dad always bragged that the house was in his name only because he bought it before marriage. What he didn't know was that Grandma had left Mom an inheritance 2 years ago, and Mom had paid off the mortgage in full. The house was paid for with her money, which meant she owned it regardless of whose name was on the deed. Her lawyer had already filed the paperwork. She told Dad and Natalie to leave immediately, or she'd call the police for trespassing. Dad said she couldn't be serious. Mom pulled out her phone and started dialing. Natalie grabbed her store-bought salad and ran to her car. Dad tried to take some of the pot roast, but Mom said that was for family only. He said he was family. She said not anymore. Dad asked where he was supposed to go. Mom suggested Natalie's studio apartment since she was the new woman of the house now. He asked about his clothes. Mom said she'd already donated them that morning while he was golfing. All of them. Even his lucky golf polo. We ate dinner without Dad for the first time in 20 years. It was the best pot roast Mom ever made. Dad lived with Natalie for exactly 1 week before she kicked him out for being too old and boring. Mom kept the house and got half his retirement in the divorce. Dad rents a room from a coworker now. He asked me to come to Sunday dinner last week. Mom said that was for family only.